Welcome to another episode of Batman Superman Dawn of Podcast. As always, I'm your host Adam, and with me is my co-host Nick. Nick, how's it going?
Doing fantastic, Adam. Happy to be here. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. It's hot today, as it has been the last week and a half. But we're talking,
Yeah,
in my opinion, the two greatest superheroes of all time, and that is a good day in any by any metric. Um,
absolutely.
Today was actually only supposed to be about Superman, but looking through the news, we're like, there's a lot of Batman stuff we're going to cover, so might as well combine the two again.
Christmas in July.
Although I will confess, I'm half-hearted thinking of changing the name of the combined podcast that features both Batman and Superman to Martha's Boys, a Batman and Superman podcast. But we'll see. We'll see if that catches on.
Why did you say that name?
Donnie would have a field day editing an intro for that one, so we'll see what he says for that. But for now, it is what it is. And we're going to go a little bit against the grain first, because usually we do news and discussions first, and then in the second half we do, whether it be a comic book or animated series, we do that first. But this time we're going to do the reverse, and we're going to cover the second and third episode of Superman the Animated Series, which was The Last Son of Krypton, Part 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, Nick, when we left off way back when, in the first episode of the animated series, Krypton had exploded, and Baby Kal-El's ship was off in space, making its way to Earth. Episode 2. So where do we start episode 2 and 3? Just give us a bit of a rundown of what happens in 2 and 3. We'll cover them both together because it's one story. So.
Right. Yeah. So, oddly enough, episode 2 literally picks up immediately after episode 1 had ended. So the spaceship that Clark Kal-El is in immediately lands over on Kansas. In which case, the spaceship lands. We get young Martha and Jonathan Kent, who of course go on to find Clark Kent, of course. And then the episode kind of follows as Clark Kent is a teenager. We get this cool thing of we're in Kansas a little bit, so Clark's discovering his powers. Before there was a Lois Lane, we get a Lana Lang, so that's cool that the animated series played with the fact that, of course, once upon a time, Clark and Lana did have a little bit of a connection, so to speak. Interesting enough, it seems like Lana knows or knew of Clark's identity because he's kind of telling everything that's going on with him.
Yeah.
Things like that. So that's pretty cool. And then we and literally the episode is like Superman Year One. So then we kind of flash forward to Clark's first days of the Daily Planet, and then the episode so and so ends with the nice battle. Clark's first real official battle in Metropolis against some heavy artillery. I guess we'll say.
Yes. So. Interesting thing about the episode 2, I liked most of it in the sense. Well, I liked all of it, but I really did like the. You know what I noticed about the land when the ship lands? It's a very, in a lot of the incarnations, it's a very rough.
It does land very, very conveniently.
Explosions, it makes a mess. It's very Michael Bay-ish in most iterations. In this incarnation, it's a very serene, relaxed, peaceful landing. No damage is done to the surrounding area. It's very, So I noticed that was quite a bit different than other incarnations. And then, of course, the parents finding him, Martha and Jonathan, and the fact that she decides to use her maiden last name as his first name, baby's first name. The other thing that was different about this incarnation is there wasn't much objection by Jonathan about keeping him. He's just like, yeah, he's cute, we'll keep him. That was
almost breaks his finger, and that's about it.
Yeah. I mean, that was pretty funny, actually. So I liked all of that. I actually really enjoyed the way they transitioned from, like, within the episode, from when she names him to high school Clark.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, pretty much right off the bat, we find out that Lana and Clark are in some sort of relationship. And you're right, she does seem to have a knowledge of Clark being different, because he's very open about, kind of seeing things, X-ray vision, and his super hearing. Like, he tells her that he can hear things that nobody should be able to hear or see.
Mm-hmm.
And we even have a pre-Superman teenage Clark rescue at the gas station, where he rescues a young family from an exploding gas station, right? So that was all well done, and it looked really good.
Mm-hmm.
And that was great. I even liked after that event, Clark starts questioning. He's like he's talking to his parents, and he's trying to rationalize how he's able to do these, like, hear these things and see these things, and how he was able to walk through fire, and there wasn't even a scratch on him.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the first time we see them admitting that he's not from around here, right? And they show him the ship in the storm cellar, and Jonathan gives him what I call the Kryptonian Rubik's Cube that he touches, and
The Kryptonian Game Boy.
Yeah, basically. And that whole bit where he sees the hologram of Jor-El and Lara is very much from the John Byrne Man of Steel era. It was very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of dug all that. And I like the way he was freaked out about it. Like, his immediate reaction was, he was freaked out, and, like, he ran. And even where he leaps over, over that bluff in the middle of the ground. That's also almost like they plucked it right from the John Byrne Man of Steel miniseries from back in the day, which was cool to see. And then we get that nice moment of him kind of sort of being relaxed and just accepting it and being able to fly. I thought that was really well animated and really well shot, and the musical score to it was very beautiful, very serene. I really like how that all came together. What did you think of all that?
Yeah, I was gonna say serene was actually the word that immediately came to my mind while watching the episode. How everything kind of just flowed perfectly. Like none of the dialogue felt too cheesy. None of the animation felt too unrealistic. Like kind of like people like were screaming left and right, and it like nothing like really like felt a little corny either. Everything was kind of just like right in line. I feel like. And I don't know if you caught it too, because like I think the cool part about rewatching all these episodes is that you kind of pick up on a lot of things. I totally flew over my head that when the Kents found Clark, Jonathan immediately was like, "Well, what if he's Russian? Like, what if this like a Sputnik?" Type baby, and I was like, "Oh, Superman Red Sun! That's so cool that the, like the Raiders kind of like were throwing those little breadcrumbs out there. Like that's
That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, everything else I thought was pretty epic. The way that Clark rescuing those people, and he doesn't kind of like do it without hesitation. He just sees that people need help, and he kind of goes to do it. And it kind of have like a Mask of the Phantasm type of feel to me too, where he's like, he does it in regular street clothes, and he's like, you know what, I can't do this every time. So this is like gives him like the secret identity. Inspiration. So that was pretty cool. And it's Superman. Like, what do you want, right? Like the scores rocking. It makes you feel good. It's a good-natured Clark trying to do the right thing. What's not to love?
Yeah, and it's like, and that's the thing. He's like, he's not worried about in that moment when that family's in danger. He's not worried about, well, what if somebody sees me? He's like, I don't have time to worry about that because people are in danger. So I like that. It's nice to see a Clark that is not averse to saving people, or doesn't have people tell him, maybe you shouldn't do that. Let that bus full of kids die. It's all right. Well, just save your own ass. That's all that matters.
Save yourself.
Yeah. But I'm not going to go there any more than that. But my only sort of kind of hang up with episode 2 is the quick transition from he's flying, he hugs his parents when he kind of lands, and then boom, we're in Metropolis. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I got whiplash. I'm like, what happened here?
I would have liked to see the suit being made or something. I'm like, where did he get the suit? You know? I'm like, I don't know.
So that was my only issue with episode 2 was that the transition from teenage Clark to Metropolis Clark was like,
that's like a 10-year jump right there.
Yeah. When we do get to Metropolis, though, man, it hits everything so perfectly. Like everything about this episode 3 is just about literal perfection. Mm-hmm. We see that first interaction. First of all, seeing Lois in her element, like right away, and how assertive and brash she is. Like it's like quintessential Lois Lane. Mm-hmm. She even sort of like, because the Daily Planet pretty much, at least from the people that we see in there, before Clark makes his big entrance, it's very much that boys club kind of, you see those male reporters there, they're lazing around, they're shooting the shit, and sort of Lois is the one that kind of like whips them all into gear, and like I like that because that's just so Lois, like it's so perfect. And then this is where the whole Lois Lane wears purple kind of thing started. Yep. So just seeing that again and was like, I was like, all right, this is this is the blueprint, so to speak. Although purple, so not much blue there. But then we get the scene where she storms into Perry's office, kind of verbal sparring with him about an article and this and that, and then he introduces her to Clark, and I like it because like this interaction was good because she does have an attitude with him, but she's not mean or belittling at all, right? Which is kind of my complaint with what Kate Bosworth was doing. She was kind of belittling almost to Clark, and I didn't agree with that aspect. So I like to see that here. The way it was handled here. She calls him Smallville pretty much right away as soon as she finds out where he's from. Like that becomes his nickname right off the bat. And when they go to they're partnered up by Perry, and he wants them both to cover Lex's big announcement about his military contract and the exosuit that he's sort of putting out on display for the first time. And what I like is like there's actually competition between almost like a friendly co-worker competition between Clark and Lois about getting getting the story. Where and that was very reminiscent of. It reminded me of Lois and Clark. That's how their relationship was. And Lois and Clark was really, up until this point, the only other adaptation that kind of... Well, okay, actually, Adventures of Superman when George Reeves did it, but in terms of modern adaptation, Lois and Clark was the only one, because in the Reeves/Donner movies, like Lois was the one taking charge. Yeah. Clark almost like lucked his way into a story, with Superman 3, because it just so happens to take place in Smallville, so you cover it. But here he's like actively going through the story, and like they're throwing friendly jabs at each other of who's going to get the story first and all that. So I like that kind of relationship instead of Lois is the one that takes charge and Clark just sort of follows her lead. Like I
Mm-hmm.
like that it's both of them competing to see, hey, we're both really good reporters. Let's see who can get the story first. Like I like that
Right.
aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get the malfunction or the robbery of the I should say of the Lexo suit, right?
Mm-hmm.
The armor, and what I really liked about that whole subplot or aspect of the plot was that Clark sees in the melee Lex take off before I guess before he had went to change to Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on in the episode, now that now that he saw with his two eyes, he has to use his journalistic skills to get proof because he can't just say, "Hey, I saw it," and I saw Lex kind of getting out of dodge when he knew shit was going to go down, because that's not going to hold up in a story. Like you
Mm-hmm.
need actually other than I saw it, you have to have factual evidence that there's collusion of some sort between Lex and I can't remember what country it was, what made up country it was that he was colluding with. But so after sort of Clark sees Lex scurry away, he makes his first save as Superman. Um, Rescues Lois from a beam falling on her. Like that's the first appearance of Superman, really, which I thought
Mm-hmm.
was really cool. One of the things I really liked about that, though, is that even though he saves Lois in that moment, she actually helps him in the rescue. So it's not like she's like, yes, she gets herself into precarious situations, but
Mm-hmm.
by no means is she a damsel in distress,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I really liked that. What do you think of the first, like that being the first appearance of Superman? Did you?
I mean, it's pure classic Superman. You know, when it really boils down to, right, how it's like, oh, Lois conveniently seems to find herself in these precarious situations, like you said too. But I mean, like the image is so striking, and it sets the tone, and it really like lays the foundation, not only for their relationship, but just in general. Like, this is Superman's first save, and he does it with, arguably his number one biggest fan,
Yeah,
or who would later go on to be his number one biggest fan in Lois Lane. But I'm completely with you on everything you said up until this point. Lois Lane is never really abrasive towards Clark Kent. And she's never really abrasive towards the idea of Superman either. Like, she's more like, I love that this show is always so like consistent, and the
yeah,
fact that like Lois is always so like ingrained, like she's infatuated with
yeah,
the idea of who this individual might be, right? Where she's always like, that looks like an S. Like wonder what that could be, right? And she's always like, she's never like doubting like that he might be bad or anything like that. So I kind of like right off the bat, you're kind of like, they're setting up that eventually like Lois and Superman
yeah.
are
Like
gonna
she's
have
not
like,
afraid of him, right?
yeah, they're gonna have that relationship. And then of course you get the iconic interview that takes parallels from Superman the movie and the comics of like
Yeah,
where Lois gets the interview and Superman tells her where she came from, where he came from.
yeah.
Uh,
When he flies her with the car, he
yep.
flies the car, which that was pulled out again. That was something done in the Byrne Man of Steel run. However, it was done a little different here because I think, and we'll eventually do a review on that miniseries. But I think what happened in that one was she tries to. Her car ends up in the water, like in the water,
Mm-hmm.
and she almost drowns. And he pulls the car and flies the car. I mean, they didn't go that dramatic here. It was just he flew the car up,
Yeah.
and that was the sort of setup for the interview, which I dug. I thought it was really well put together. And again, I mean, I know it's an animated series, but with the vocal work of the two leads,
Mm-hmm.
Tim Daly and Dana Delaney,
Yep.
vocally they have so much chemistry
Oh yeah.
together. right? Um, so right away you're into it, like you buy it, right? And then we also get an iconic plane rescue in this episode, which of course
Yep.
Superman Returns would later borrow, and that's still, in my opinion, the what I'm saying. The Superman Returns rescue is still the best live action Superman rescue I've seen on film. But we see a version of it here first, which was kind of cool, and so I love that. And then I think like everything in this episode was great, and then to me they put the cherry on top when Superman confronts Lex, just hovering outside his window, and the fact that Superman, so Lex opens the window and is being very smarmy and a bit of a dick towards Superman, and Superman won't respond to him, and that infuriates, like the lack of response infuriates Lex, and the fact that throughout the whole conversation, not only is Superman not talking, but he's not on the ground. He's levitating in the air. So Lex is constantly having to look up at him, which pisses off Lex to no degree. Because Lex even says, I have the tallest building in Metropolis. Like 2/3 of the people that live in this city work for me, even whether they know it or not. And there's one point where he's like, Lex is yelling at him, saying, "Say something," and throws the little statue of the Lexo suit at Superman. Superman catches it and just destroys it. And is like,
"Yep,
I'll be watching you," and he flies off,
confirming his suspicions. I'm onto you. Yeah,
that was a fantastic confrontation. That was incredible. And the best part of that was, yes, Superman confirms that he knows Lex was behind it all, but Lex fires right back because he can't prove anything. And that's the push and pull of their scenario, right? That Lex does all this crap, and he's okay with admitting it to Superman as long as Superman can't prove anything, and he throws that in Superman's face all the time. And the frustration is that you could tell in those moments that Superman probably wants to just punch him one, but he can't, because if he does, he'll kill him, right? So so that's the dichotomy that Superman faces, and it was executed so well here. In the flyaway at the end of the episode, a couple of things I noticed. One, there's one apartment in Metropolis. There was a guy in a pink shirt, and the terrace that he was on looked like the terrace of Lois's apartment in Superman the movie. And so I think that was a nod to Superman movie. There was even a small part of the score. Obviously, it didn't go full on.
Right.
But there was a hint of John Williams' theme. There was a moment where it's like you could hear it. And I thought that was a nice touch. But man, did I love these two episodes. Were fantastic. All three together are a pretty damn entertaining origin story for Superman.
Yeah, it's like a feature length film if you really. They sell it at one. I mean, even the cool part of John Corbin being Superman's quote unquote first villain, who would
he gets introduced.
Obviously later goes on to become Metallo, but he's the one that steals the Lexo suit, and then it's a really simplistic battle too. It's not anything that's too fantastical. Superman, where it's just Superman going against a robot, right? For lack of a better.
Which is a nod to the Fleischer era, which a lot of the time that's when he fought, right?
Yeah, and I agree with you, man. 100%. Like just that ending encounter is just iconic, right? Superman just not backing down. He's confident. This is his first sense of I got my eye on you. And Lex is he's scared because he's found his match, right? And now Superman's your power over the city's gone, because now the city's gonna have hope again. So I even thought that the little tendencies of Superman's not quite waving to people yet. Right, how Superman was always that happy, jovial kind of like guy that like when people wave to him, he kind of wave back. Where this Superman is still learning the ropes. You know, he's flying here. He's getting people to see him though. You know, he's not like hiding in plain sight. So like that, it's like it's a start. Like right, like this is gonna be Superman.
Yeah.
Some other things that I noticed too is we got a Gotham City name drop, which was cool. And then I guess we get a little insinuation that Lex and Lois might have been romantically involved, which is gross.
Yeah.
But you know, fine. But again, the amount of like breadcrumbs that they literally lay in like in these 3 episodes is it's just incredible. Like
You could tell that the people that made these episodes knew their stuff.
They're fans. Yeah.
And all I can say is I'm really hoping that James Gunn gives us a scene, like the end scene between Lex and Superman in his Superman movie, because
you got it.
Seeing Corn Sweat and Nicholas Hoult do that would be spectacular. Okay, so let's go ahead and rate the 2 episodes. So episode 2, what would you give that one?
Episode 2, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. Just because I think what later comes on definitely elevates it. But this is just straight up 4 out of 5 from me. How about you?
Yeah, same 4 out of 5. The transition from Smallville to Metropolis was a little quick and a little jarring, but so that's why it gets a 4.
Yeah.
Episode 3 for me was an absolute 5.
Yeah. It's a 5 for me. It's pure Superman. It's a fantastic origin tale, even for animation standards. It's incredible.
So basically, to recap, the first episode, the Krypton episode, was a 5. Second episode was a 4, and the third episode was a 5 again. So there you go.
Absolutely.
Of course, we're going to continue doing episode reviews of Superman the Animated Series, so stay tuned for more of that. But right now, we're going to take a quick break, and on the other side of the break, we're going to cover a lot of news in the world of Batman and Superman. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
What's up, everyone? It's the Emerald Enthusiast. For all of your multiverse viewing and listening needs, check out our shows, which include Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Power Rangers, the Marvel Universe, and the DC Universe, including the Emerald Echo podcast. You can check us out on Podbean, and remember to subscribe right here on YouTube. That's the Multiverse Musings Podcast Network. From the first podcast to the last.
And we're back, and as promised, there's a lot of news to get to in the worlds of Batman and Superman. So let's dive right in. Let's start with Batman, since we just covered Superman the Animated Series. So we'll transition to Batman. The last time that we talked, we did not have anything that resembled a release date for the Penguin. Now we do have a release date. It's funny. The last time I did an episode, it's not up yet, but by the time people are watching this, it will be up. I did an episode, a Batman and Robin rewatch, no less, with Chris Evans, and we talked about the content of the trailer for the Penguin, and I know you did as well on the Vigilante 1939. From what I gather from your conversation and from my own opinion, we're both excited for that show. We're going to be covering that show. We're going to be doing reviews, you and I, of that show when it airs, and now we know when it'll be airing, which is September 19th, according to the Hollywood Reporter. It will be 8 episodes, as we already knew. The only reason, this is a little bit of an update, the only reason that it wasn't transitioned to an HBO proper show was because the advertising and marketing had already started with the branding of Max. So that's why it'll be a Max original as opposed to HBO original. But like I said, I'm very excited for this show simply because it looks like we're getting the Penguin of the comic books.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously we know we are because that was the Penguin that we saw in the Batman. But a deeper dive into like where his story picks up after the Batman is something I'm very intrigued and interested in. It's obviously the next chapter of the Batman, uh, Matt Reeves' Batman saga. Um, and given the fact that we're not going to have the Batman Part 2 until supposedly October of 2026, I'm very much eagerly awaiting this to have another piece to that puzzle. The also the latest thing, it's not confirmed, so let's just put this out there. But Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne and or Batman is supposed to appear in this series at some point. I think that was something that Jeff Snyder let be known. Again, it's not confirmed. You know, DC Studios, HBO Max didn't come out and say, hey, look, Robert Pattinson's in this as Batman. So it's not confirmed. We heard rumblings of this when Penguin was still filming. You know, Pattinson was in New York where they were filming, so 1 + 1, you know. So this is not a stretch to say, hey, Robert Pattinson's going to show up. And then turns out that he does, and hey, look, I was right. So, you know, I hope it's true and that he is, in fact, in it, because it would make sense that he'd be, because otherwise, all this crap's going down with the mob. Where is Batman? What is he doing? You know, is he updating his suit? If he doesn't show up, is he updating his suit? Is he, you know, is he further making adjustments to the Batmobile? Like what
He's in Rome.
Yeah. So I mean, so he's got to show up. In my opinion, I think makes a lot of sense. Do you think it's going to be a case, before we get into the wild speculation of it all?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just go with what we know, and that you know, this is going to be the in between the films. Do you think it's going to be a case of Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne or Batman shows up in the last episode, in the very last 5 or 10 minutes, and whatever he does there will set up the events of the Batman Part 2 and maybe even tease who the next villain is going to be? Like, is that what you expect to be happening here, if he does appear?
I would say that's probably the most logical scenario, just in terms of like the way that like it can play out in a television format. Meaning that if this really is like being deemed as like the next chapter in the saga, I think it would make a lot of sense of whether or not, regardless of like what the Penguin was made to be, like this was just made to be like a standoff series that, you know, just continues Penguin's chapter but doesn't really set up the next movie, or if the series was somehow reworked to being a next chapter and then sets up the next chapter for the movie. So I'm gonna be of the belief that of the scenario that you just laid out, that while it might be a little disappointing, depending on what people's expectations are, if that is the case, I think it could be really cool, because then it kind of leaves you wanting more at the end, like, you know, like whatever unfolded in the Penguin, Batman's gonna have to resolve. So it could be really, really cool. Whether he's Bruce Wayne or he's Batman, it's in Gotham City, so he's gonna have to know about it at some point. So I would think between 8 episodes, he knows about something that's going down. So I'm gonna say, the ending makes a lot of sense to me.
Now, my hope is that by the time that last episode airs, or shortly thereafter, we're going to start hearing some castings for the Batman Part 2. If we don't start hearing about castings for the Batman Part 2, by the time the Penguin airs, or shortly thereafter, I'm going to start getting concerned, Nick.
Which would be like November. So if we don't, if we're towards the end of the year and we don't know, yeah, that's kind of alarming, I would say. If we don't hear anything by November, I think that's kind of concerning.
Like,
That's a whole year by this point.
there are people, friends of ours, who don't actually think this movie's going to come out. And if we don't have any more details by November, December, I'm going to start believing them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and again, here's the reason. It should also be noted that, and this is why I'm sort of getting into tinfoil hat territory now, because it was recently made public in all the trades that the Arkham Asylum series that was intended to be set in the Batman universe, Matt Reeves is the Batman universe, is no longer moving forward.
Hmm.
But remember, James Gunn said back in December that the only Arkham series that he is aware of is always meant to, or is always meant to be set in his DC universe. And he was not aware of any permutations that it went through before. So just to clarify that, I did some digging regarding dates. I think Adrian Campos, who was supposed to be the showrunner of Matt Reeves' The Batman series, when it was still supposed to be a Reeves-verse iteration, he was, I believe, announced in like July or August of 2022. James Gunn did not take over DC until October of 2022. So if the only iteration that he's aware of was always a DCU show, then this Mr. Campos character didn't get very far, and that probably died. That show died within a few months, because even the article that announces the cancellation says sources say that there may be a new iteration developed down the road. I think that little blurb in all the trades is referring to what James Gunn was talking about. Because when James Gunn made those thread comments, he noted that there is no script. It's just an idea that Matt Reeves pitched to him as a DC series, and he liked the idea, so they were gonna explore that further. That's what I think. So when the trades say another iteration may come forward in the future, when things are ready to have that happen, I think that's the version that James Gunn is talking about. So there is some confusion with the way this article presented itself. And of course, James Gunn's busy filming, so we can't expect him to clarify, every time a fan asks a question. So like, if a fan asks, did Rachel Brosnahan stub her toe yesterday? He can't come on and say, well, confirmed or denied or whatever. Like, people want instantaneous answers from the guy. The guy's filming a $100+ million movie. Like, let him do his job. So, but the fact that let's for now say the Batverse, Matt Reeves iteration of the Arkham show has been cancelled, coupled with the Batman being delayed a full year. Nick, what do you think is going on here? Because it can't just be, oh, the writer's strike and the actor strike, and that's why the script is delayed. Because let me tell you something, digging into those dates that I mentioned earlier, Matt Reeves was formally, he made a first look deal with Warner Brothers that included the Batman Part 2, the Penguin, and Batman Caped Crusader, which we'll get to in a bit. That deal was announced at CinemaCon in August of 2022. So he knew he was making the Batman sequel in August of 22. James Gunn was hired in October of 2022. So let's look at it. Matt Reeves' output since August of 2022 produced Caped Crusader, produced The Penguin, and is writing the Batman Part 2. So from August 2022 to July 2024, that's what Matt Reeves has gotten done. Conversely, James Gunn sets up an entire Bible for a shared DC cinematic universe. Wrote and had it created and filmed and everything, Creature Commandos. Wrote 8 episodes of Peacemaker, which is now filming. Wrote and is now directing Superman. And now has Supergirl in pre-production. And he started working officially in his new capacity 2 months after Matt Reeves got his contract. So, tell me again how this is the writer's strike and the actor's strike's doing. What do you think is going on with the Batman?
Yeah, I mean, like, first things first, once the actors and writers strike ended, everything that is of delay up until that point is completely on the creatives,
sure,
the writers, and the directors, right? Like, once the strikes ended, people went back to work. Like that's a fact. So anything that is of delay up until that point is completely non-strike related. That's how I'm approaching it. I think we just need to remember that. Look, Matt Reeves is notoriously slow at developing and creating, and that's fine. I mean, when you look at his track record,
sure,
his filmography, the dude is insanely talented. He has a very distinct vision, and he wants that vision to be the best that it can be. So, like, all due respect,
100% agree.
Of course, on that front. But I think this is a very peculiar situation that we keep going back to because, like we said, once James Gunn took over DC, Matt Reeves had probably all the intent in the world, and as well as Warner Brothers, probably to make all the Batman movies that they possibly could with Matt Reeves, however many he wanted to do, at least. But then, once Gunn took over, everything, James Gunn, what's been James Gunn's motto ever since he took over? I want to streamline DC. I want to make it more uniform. I want to make it more accessible. I don't want to confuse people anymore. So that kind of throws a little bit of a monkey wrench, now doesn't it, right? Because the Batman Part 2, for all intents and purposes, was kind of greenlit before Gunn got on board. So in which case, that was an actively developed movie even before while Gunn got into a fold. But look, the more things take time, the more that they're not developed the way that we thought they were, the more things can change. And I think while the intent was that this was going to be completely separate from the DC universe that James Gunn is creating, look, we're not saying anything is confirmed, but where there's smoke, there's fire. And the longer this takes to get on the ground running, you have to ask yourself, is it really beneficial for a DC universe that I'm creating if I release this standalone Batman movie that has nothing to do with the universe that I'm going to create. And then a year or two later, I'm going to create another Batman that's not Robert Pattinson, attempting to confuse the audience, which is the point of what I was trying to avoid. So I think that the more that this goes on, there's a slight chance that this could actually be folded into the DC universe. That's kind of my. But I know that negates everything that we saw in part one and what the Penguin is. That it's this gritty, darker, realistic Gotham City and Batman. But I don't know. Like the longer that this takes, and the more that DCU projects keep getting developed, the more that it makes sense that Matt Reeves and James Gunn have to at least be having discussions. That's
Yeah.
all I'll say.
Yeah, I think, again, I'm starting to believe that those discussions that you're alluding to are probably taking place.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm not saying it's confirmed because I don't. Like, James Gunn doesn't tell me anything. Neither does Matt Reeves. I wish they would. My inbox is open to them at any point. You know,
I hear your phone buzzing in the background.
yeah, I wish I'd be answering it immediately. But I it wouldn't shock me. And people will say, but Matt Reeves and James Gunn both said that they were keeping them separate. Great. They both said that back in a couple of years ago, last year. Great. Guess what? Time, opinion, money, things change. You know, situations change. And I think this very well could be a case of, okay, let's look at what is possible here. Because there is nothing in the Batman that directly negates the possibility that James Gunn's Superman could exist in that world. Yes, Gotham City is darker, grittier, more real world than Metropolis. That doesn't need to change.
Mm-hmm.
In the comics, Gotham City is the same way. Guess what? Batman and Superman coexist in the comics, and Batman is not mentioning Superman every time he goes and solves a case or investigates a case. Superman doesn't show up every time. And yet, Batman comics take place in the gritty, dark Gotham City. So we're not reinventing the wheel here.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing new. And again, people will say, well, look at how realistic the Batman was. Well, okay, let's examine that. We're still talking about a guy who dresses up in armor fashioned in the visage of a bat and fights crime every night. How realistic is that, ladies and gentlemen? Like, we're not that far removed from an alien that can fly. Like, it's not that much of a stretch. So, like, this idea that, and yeah, at this stage, let's say that James and Matt have those conversations and they agree, because ultimately it's James Gunn's call.
Mm-hmm.
If currently, let's say, Robert Pattinson has 3 films on his deal, if James Gunn decides that 3rd film is going to be a team up, then that film is going to be a team up. Because Batman is under the auspices of DC Studios, which James Gunn is the co-CEO of. Now, do I think that? I think they'll have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Conversation, at least on, there'll be two conversations. There'll be one with Matt Reeves that goes in my head something along these lines. We can keep it separate,
Mm.
and you can make this movie part two. But if that's your intention, we'll give you another, until 2026. We'll give you a 2026 release date. While you're writing the script, work it so that it could be a finite ending to your universe. Or the other option is, and this is where you bring Pattinson in, you can make your third part, rework part two to make it so that it acknowledges that this Batman connects
Mm-hmm.
with the world you're creating, and then you can then go off and make your part three.
Maybe it's not even part two anymore.
And I don't even have to, and James, I can say, I don't even have to put
Mm-hmm.
Superman in any of your movies, or Flash, or Crazy Quilt, or Martian Manhunt, or whatever the hell. Take Hawkman, Green Lantern, take your pick. I don't have to put any of those guys in part two or part three. All you have to do is acknowledge a connection, set it up so that it's there, and then once you're done part three, then I can bring Batman, or while you're doing your siloed off solo films, I can take Robert Pattinson and plug him in where he fits elsewhere. So he would be going into other people's movies, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
And then James Gunn would have a conversation with Robert Pattinson, which is, you can do this as a solo entity, you can do one more, and then whoever I choose to play Batman will be Batman going forward. And that will end your time as the character. Or, considering that you are on the verge of having a child, you can have 10 more years of job security, as well as leeway to go off and do your independent, artsy film projects, and still play Batman at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like to do? And those are the kinds of conversations being had, I think. And based on the answers that James Gunn receives from both Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson, will dictate what direction they go. But those conversations are being had. Because, put it this way, one way or another, we're going to have a good sense of it quite soon, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm thinking, if James Gunn has brought up these issues, and I think this is the reason why it's taking so long, if these issues have been brought up, I think shortly after opening weekend of Superman, James Gunn's going to want answers.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he's got his Batman and it's Robert Pattinson, he's going to want to let people know.
Right.
If he's going to find a Batman, he's going to let people know, because they're going to want. Because you and I both know, once opening weekend of Superman hits, the audience, even the general audience, is going to be like, okay, but what about Batman?
Yeah. Immediately.
Like, we're seeing Green Lantern, we're seeing Hawk Girl, Mr. Terrific. Where's Batman?
Look at what the first Iron Man did, right? I mean, that literally, or the end of the Incredible Hulk literally had him meeting Iron Man, and then from Iron Man,
So
people wanted the rest of them.
the audience is going to want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first questions is like, okay, Batman, where is he? Right. When are they gonna interact? So I think it'd be fair for James Gunn to want an answer by the time Superman releases. But I think those conversations are being had. And if you think just because they said so a year and a half to 2 years ago that they were going to be separate, again, Remember Noah Centineo from Black Adam? He was cast to play He-Man once. Guess what? Things changed and he's no longer playing He-Man. Things change in Hollywood. So if you think, well, they already said no. Well, yeah, okay, great. Congratulations. Cool. That's fantastic. They said no 2 years ago. Good.
I said I was gonna have pizza last night, Adam. I changed my mind.
Imagine how that
Have
works.
pizza.
Yeah. Imagine how that works. And imagine how that works when millions of dollars are at stake and being put into these things. So, I think it's naive to assume that these conversations either are not about to have taken or are taking place. So, we'll wait and see. We'll find out the Batman of it all in due course. But in the meantime, we do have some Superman pictures from the Cleveland set. There's a bunch to go over. So, what did you... We finally got, in broad daylight, our first looks of Superman and Mr. Terrific. Let's start there. What'd you think, Nick?
Oh man, first things first. He looks incredible. My only thing was like, if I had known that the suit was gonna be this bright, vibrant, colorful, and signifying of hope, it really makes you wonder why that first official reveal was so like gloomy and like a little bit of like despairing, and like while I thought he looked great and while I liked the image, it was still a little bit jarring. While you look at the official reveal and then you look at these set photos and it's like they almost look two totally different different things, right? I mean, Mr. Terrific, Jesus Christ, whatever the budget of this movie is gonna be, clearly the costume department, we have nothing to worry about, because Mr. Terrific was literally jumped right out of a comic book. I mean, he looks, for lack of a better term, no pun intended, terrific.
Yeah.
And Superman, I mean, my God, Adam, I mean, I know we're gonna break down a little bit more, but I mean, it's like the perfect blue to me. It's like he looks incredible. He's got the hair curl.
Yeah. The blue,
the
the
S
red.
back on the cape. My God, I was crying all day when I saw that.
That was amazing. Yeah.
He put the S back on the cape, and I'm like, he looks phenomenal. And I mean, like, even like his stature of like he's kind of like got the Superman pose going on. He's figuring it out. I just thought those two images alone, and I know we're gonna break down them even more because we did get a lot. Those were just fantastic, and I love that people like were running with it. And I'm like, it was literally this one photographer. I want to like let people know this is one photographer who was getting all these high quality photos, and they look better than anything that I've seen of official like.
Yeah.
So yeah, these were awesome.
Yeah. First of all, Mr. Terrific, right out of the comic, like take that Alex Ross drawing of Mr. Terrific, and that's pretty much what you have. With Superman, it is a perfect merging into, like we've said it before, but it bears repeating with these new images. The blending of different eras of Superman suits into the one. I think it's the perfect blend of all of them. But the colors in these set photos, like the blue is perfect, the red is perfect. The trunks are there, and they look good, and they work. Even though directors will tell you that they can't do the trunks nowadays because James Gunn's like, yeah, hold my beer. And same with the Fs. Both Bryan Singer and Zack Snyder. Oh, you can't do the Fs because CGI. James Gunn's like, yeah, hold my beer. Yes, like it looks visually, it's quintessential Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And then everybody's like, we keep hearing, I keep seeing this on Twitter. Oh, well, there's two different suits because, and that was put to rest the other day. because we did see the battle damage. The version that we saw in the cinema, we saw it on set, so it's the same suit. It's just for whatever reason they chose to show us the battle damage one first.
Right.
The only thing I can think of is that when they initially intended to shoot outside, maybe they intended to do that first.
Right.
But then the plan changed. That's the only.
They thought it would leak earlier, so they wanted to get a jump on it. Yeah.
That's the only kind of logic I can use to wrap my head around it.
Mm-hmm.
There's one shot, Nick, that it's basically David Cornsweet as Superman, like sort of kneeling down, about to like leap upwards and fly. To me, that doesn't look like an actor in a suit. It's just Superman taking off. And it looks so amazing. It just, like I look at these, like, and there's the picture. We won't get into the super spoilery one with that one character that may or may not be somebody. We won't get into that one, but there's the one of him coming out of the courthouse. And like the angle of the camera is far, the shot is far away. But it's so blue and red that you could just see it like it's Superman without question.
Yep.
And it's just, it's like, when they talk about him being like a beacon of hope, when you see the image, the suit from that far away, and you can see the colors so brightly and so vividly, and you don't have to squint and say, I think that's Superman, but it's too dark, I can't really tell. It's again, quintessential Superman is the only word I can use, phrase I can think of. We also got our first look at Clark Kent. And the idea that Clark Kent is two different personas is back 100%, and I welcome it, because we see Clark with very curly, I don't know how to describe the style of the hairstyle, but if you've watched My Adventures with Superman,
very similar to that.
Or if you're reading the current Batman Superman World's Finest run, Clark's hair in those two projects,
like a bowl cut,
is reminiscent of Clark here. The curly hair, it takes a minute to get used to, because we've never seen it like that before in live action. But two things I know. One, it's actually David Cornsweet's actual hair. It's not a wig. Two, it really sells the idea that you could pass this guy on the street and not automatically look at him and say, aha, that's Superman.
Right.
Like, of course, because I'm following the movie, I know that that's David Cornsweet. Hence, I know that he's playing Superman. But if you randomly showed me a picture of David Cornsweet as Clark Kent and a picture of just even not as Superman, because then that would give it away, because you're showing me this guy with glasses side by side with Superman. I get what you're trying to do there, but if you showed me just like a regular picture of David Cornsweet and a picture of David Cornsweet as Clark Kent, I could be convinced that that's not the same guy.
Yeah.
And it's high time that is back again, because let's be honest, in Smallville, he had the glasses for one season?
Yeah.
And by that point, he had walked in and out of the Daily Planet so many times as Clark without glasses. I don't know how anybody's stupid enough to be like, well, this guy's not anything. I guess because he blurred around every time he did shit. Maybe that's why, but I digress.
Sure.
But anyway, and then in Man of Steel, I'm sorry, and BVS. In Justice League, it didn't matter because he wasn't. But in Man of Steel and BVS, Clark Kent was nothing more than Superman wearing glasses and a trench coat. Like, there was no difference. The hair was pretty much the same. Like, it was literally Superman wearing glasses. And the fact that, here's what made it worse, is Lois had already blurted out with police present at the Kent farm, yelling, Clark, Clark, as soon as she walked up to the... So there was already no need for the secret identity because, look, she already blew it. That's number one. Number two, correct me if I'm wrong, when all that devastation was happening, weren't Perry White, the girl version of Jimmy Olsen, and Steve Lombard all there with Superman, right?
Yeah, they were.
So they saw what he looked like, right? And yet he walks into the Daily Planet, again, pair of glasses, and you're telling me that iteration of Clark Kent, nobody's going to look at him and say, wait a minute, we were just with that other guy, and they look exactly the same. Forget about, okay, I get that Lois knows, so whatever, she can play along, but from what that movie presents, the other Daily Planet staffers do not know that they're the same guy, right? But yet he walks in with nothing more than a pair of glasses. What? Who are you? I've never seen you before. So this is the first time since... And look, I'll even criticize Superman Returns. Brandon Routh, his Clark was more subdued than Christopher Reeve. It was similar, but more subdued. But here's where the whole, oh my God, Clark and Superman are two different people thing goes out the window. Because and this is why the curly hair works, by the way. This is a point that I'm trying to make. There's the scene where, remember where it's Clark, Lois, Cyclops, and the kid. They're all watching the news report. And on the wall, there's the newspaper with Superman's picture right there. Superman gone. Where did he go? And Clark's there, and that kid, as might all, the kid is the only intelligent human being in that Daily Planet office. Looks like Clark.
Keeps pulling on him.
Looks like Clark, and then starts hyperventilating because he realizes, holy shit, that guy and that guy is the same thing. So what I'm trying to get at is the hair being so radically different than just parting it one side to the other adds to the Clark Kent disguise like I've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it looks great. What do you think about the Clark Kent design?
I think he looks great too. It did take a minute or two to kind of like adjust my eyes a little bit. Like, I'm not gonna lie, just because like it is such a unique
it does take a
look that we haven't like ever had before. I don't think so. Like, the idea of Clark Kent's gonna have long hair and Superman's gonna be like that clean cut, cool cut, slick, stylish hair that we've kind of like have Superman to know and love. To me, like the All-Star Superman influence screams like right off the bat. Excuse me, Slice. So that's super cool. And I completely agree with you, Adam. In this day and age of being able to suspend your disbelief, for quote unquote secret identities, which seems to be less and less of a trope, in these comic book movies nowadays, it seems. I think this is kind of like going to be a nice throwback to people being able to distinguish these two people, right? Like, you look at Clark Kent, you're like, that guy's not Superman. He couldn't be Superman. And that's what you want to do. Like, you want to be able to take your audience along for a ride, that these can be two totally different people. It's what made Christopher Reeve so magical and iconic, is that while his look might not have been different,
his
manner,
his demeanor,
his demeanor certainly was. I think that's what you're gonna get. A little bit, this guy might be a little bit of a more bumbling, cackling, less confident Clark Kent, and maybe the long hair distinguishes that. But when he's Superman, like, a switch is gonna light up, and then that's what you want,
So then we got the Daily Planet staff. Rachel Brosnahan coming out.
Let's just get this one out of the way now.
She's wearing a purple shirt. It just, again, yes, I know. She looks like Rachel, obviously, like Rachel Brosnahan. But Rachel Brosnahan looks like Lois Lane. And remember when I said on Twitter, and listen, people could get mad at me. I could care less. They've been mad at me since 2016 at some point, whatever. I said when she was cast, all she has to do is walk on set and not say a word, and it'll be a better adaptation of Lois Lane than Amy Adams. And I'm right, because I saw that picture and I'm like, there's Lois. By the way, in case there was any doubt, Rachel Brosnahan on the list. Yep. Then we saw a picture of Jimmy. They were all coming out of Mr. Terrific's vehicle is. Mm-hmm. They're having some kind of party in that craft. But Jimmy comes out. He wasn't wearing a bow tie, but it's Jimmy. And it's again, he just looks like he walked off the page. Bow tie notwithstanding, but he looks like he walked off. And a living Jimmy Olsen is better than a dead Jimmy Olsen all day long. Then we got Perry White, and Wendell Pierce has the vest, the look, and he had the signature cigar, and it was the essence, like he just exuded Perry White. And the beautiful thing is, I saw Wendell in the Jack Ryan show.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw him on that set picture, I didn't see, that's the guy from Jack Ryan. I just saw Perry White. Like his look, and that cigar really sells it. I gotta say, the cigar sells the look. Ron Troop was in that thing, and Ron Troop, I mean, he looks like, again, when James Gunn cast, he cast people that look like their characters. Then we got Michaela Hoover as Cat Grant. Now, for anybody that was wondering, Cat Grant in the comics has blonde hair. She's wearing a wig here, obviously, but it looks good. So Cat Grant is blonde. We could now put that to rest. And I gotta say, Nick,
this is gonna give you a nice drum roll.
Michaela Hoover is on the list. Now listen, forget about bumbling by accident. I don't know how Clark is going to work.
I still think we're gonna have one more pen click at the end by the end of this episode.
I don't know how Clark is going to work with that Lois and that Cat Grant. And no wonder he's funny. He won't have to act. He's going to be falling out, because if I was working there, I'd be tripping all over the place. Left, right, center, in the copy room, in the closet, the coffee mate. It's got a kitchen in there. Oh boy, for the love of God, I don't know.
It's like the Adventures of Lois and Clark. How did that man get through that?
Yeah, and if she starts hitting on him,
right in front of Lois.
Listen, if I was Clark, I'd be folding like a cheap suit. That's all I'm going to say.
Tough work day.
Yeah,
tough day at work.
He's better off being Superman, because he doesn't have to deal with the pressure of having to resist either of those women. Sure, have Lex come at me with kryptonite. I can handle that, no problem. We also saw, speaking of Lex, we saw a very small sample of Nicholas Hoult as Lex, particularly his bald head with quite a few scratches on them. So it seems like Lex is getting in the thick of the action to some degree in this, which I like. There's not much more to say, because all we saw really was the back of his head, so we can't really go off of much there. But I mean, looks like they did a good job with the head shaving.
Yeah.
So I commend the hair department on that one. Um, we did get also our first looks now um, of Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner
Mm-hmm.
and Isabella Merced as Hawkgirl. Now, they are wearing costumes that look very similar to Mr. Terrific's. They have a Lord Tech symbol on them, and they have that white and black color scheme to them. The difference is Green Lantern's also has some green trim, and he's got the Green Lantern logo on his shoulder patch and the belt.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Meanwhile, Hawkgirl has a bit of gold and brown in her white and black color scheme, and she's got the helmet, the Hawkgirl helmet, and the mace. Now, online, there were fans complaining, well, how come the Green Lantern is not wearing, there's very little green, why are they both wearing white and black? And okay, now, listen, I'll admit that when I saw both Green Lantern and Hawkgirl, I was a little taken aback at the fact that they did look similar to Mr. Terrific. That threw me off for a second. But then I started thinking, once it was made aware that they all had the Lord Tech logo on their uniforms, I started thinking, well, there's a reason that they all look the same. And what I and many other people on the internet have surmised, at least sane, level-headed people on the internet have surmised, is that this is an early iteration of a super team bankrolled and funded by Maxwell Lord. So basically, what it looks like James Gunn is doing is taking the roster of members of the Justice League International and then fusing their look to mimic the super team known as the Terrifics.
Mm-hmm.
So if you haven't read the Terrifics, just go look at an image of the Terrifics, and you'll see that their various costumes have a uniform look to Mr. Terrifics. That's what I think is going on here. Now, having said that, we're dealing with James Gunn. After seeing the Superman suit, after seeing Mr. Terrific's suit, as a fan out there in Twitter land or anywhere on the internet, can you really with a straight face tell me that you don't believe that at some point, either at the end of this film or throughout Chapter 1 of Gods and Monsters, that both Green Lantern and Hawkgirl are going to be in their traditional, uniquely looking, that we're used to costumes? Because I think it's a matter of time. Nick, what was your take on the Hawkgirl and Green Lantern of it all?
Yeah, I think they look great. All things considered, I think I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I was taken aback a little bit, just because
You're
I think,
expecting the comic book look right
well,
away.
yeah, of course, and like as rightfully we should when we're getting a comic book movie. I think there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, look, Nathan Fillion still has the look. The Hawkgirl helmets I thought still look cool. She's
I
got
love the helmet, yeah.
Isabella Merced looks great.
Oh, all the way.
I
By the
was
way,
waiting for it. Especially
Isabella Merced on the list.
surprised you haven't done it yet, man. But I do need that there is a specific reason
Yeah.
why they look the way they look, and I think it's just be one of those things. Like, you just have to trust that James Gunn
Right.
has a plan. He knows what he's doing. It's clear that these are heroes that believe in some kind of corporate message. They're being misguided somehow, and then here's Superman, who's doesn't believe in the same moral code as they do, and Superman's going to somehow inspire them, and then I'm sure by that point, then that's where we get the classic iconic looks. I mean, my God, they're literally making a Green Lantern series So I would be remiss if Guy Gardner doesn't have his classic look by the time that Green Lantern series.
Oh
Comes.
yeah.
So, and Adam, I just have to blush about Rachel Brosnahan yet again because I know we jumped over it, but I just have to reiterate how perfect she looks and how
Yeah.
this is literally going to be like. I still think she's the selling point of the movie. I mean, I think she's going to be the star of the movie. Putting her in the purple blazer coat already. I mean, my God, I looked at one image of her in Coin Sweat.
Yeah.
Side by side, you can literally feel the chemistry
Yeah. Yeah.
just by looking at the damn photos. So, I'm just super eagerly excited for that relationship. But yeah, I'm looking forward for the heroes too, Adam, because you know what I think. We've been speculating for so long that this isn't going to be a traditional Superman story, and I look at this idea of Superman's going to inspire other heroes to change their way of
It's starting to make the
morality.
theories.
That's
Yeah.
Superman as it gets for me.
It's starting to some of the fan theories about the reverse Kingdom Come of it all is starting to make it's starting to, at least when you see those other heroes in those uniform looking outfits, and you know I think Superman's way of doing things is going to, once they discover that Maxwell Lord is an egotistical, maniacal SOB, and they break off from him, I think Superman's going to inspire them to do that. But even so, their presence will serve Superman's story, which is what James Gunn's always preached. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see them, but I have no worries that they're going to take away from Superman's story. Like they, it's a different. And again, I'm not knocking it, but like this is like them serving Superman's story is different than a couple of files on a computer screen. It's a totally different approach of doing it. One is obviously, look what we're setting up. The other
Mm-hmm.
one is serving a purpose of a character. Like really, as much as answer me this question. As much as we loved Wonder Woman's introduction in BBS, probably one of the best moments of that movie, along with the warehouse scene. Um, had they taken Wonder Woman and the cameos on the computer screen out, could you have done a similar finale to that movie without the inclusion of Wonder Woman? I contend yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Very well could have.
Superman could still have sacrificed himself and died, and Batman could have been helpless watching, because what's he going to do, a human being against a thing like that? So you know, did those characters need to be in that movie? No. Those other jail heroes? No. I'm guessing that if James Gunn does what James Gunn usually does when he tells his stories,
Mm-hmm.
those members, the Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific, and Metamorpho, however he shows up,
Yeah.
will serve the purpose of furthering Superman's story and not just being cameo fodder.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference, folks. It's a fundamental difference. And that's why I think we're on a better footing with you. That's why I'm not worried about how, you'll never see me say, is this still a Superman movie? Of course it is. But that's why I'm not worried, is because
Last I checked, the movie was Superman, not Superman and
like
Friends.
the writer director involved,
Yeah.
having seen his work, I'm very confident that he will do right by Superman and make him the focus, and that these other heroes will serve his story. Now, does that mean, of course, there's going to be set up for other things, because that's only natural, but it's, to me, the important thing to look at is how much of the story are you taking away from just to serve as setup for something else. And if you do it right, that shouldn't be an issue. That's why it works so well in Iron Man. Right? Iron Man was, I think, the pinnacle of how you should do that setup. Right? And that's why in Iron Man 2 it was a little bit more heavy-handed. because it was more obvious. But so it's but again, these images look great. Um, all they did was make me more excited,
Mm-hmm.
and so now do I think with color? Here's what the only caveat that I will sort of caution. There is a chance that with color correction and filters and filming techniques and all that jazz, well, once all this stuff is finalized, that the costume may not be as bright.
Mm.
I think you're gonna. I think if there is a change to the color scheme from what we're seeing, it's going to be a hybrid of what we're seeing on set and what we saw in that officially released photo. It'll be some middle ground between the two.
Although Gunn's movies are very bright, so I wouldn't be shocked if in terms of like his color grading.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if it is pretty similar, like a medium blue, like not like a bright blue like Christopher Reeves was, but like blue, like straight up blue.
I'm just saying there's a chance that the color may alter slightly once it goes through processing and filters and
to look like the animated series, yeah.
So, but all things considered, I'm really happy with what we're seeing, and thank God we have these things like the Penguin and My Adventures with Superman, and what we're going to talk about next real quick, Caped Crusader, to hold us over, because I can't wait till 2025 for this movie. Speaking of the Caped Crusader, Nick, we know it's coming August 1st. Since the last time we talked, we've gotten a voice cast. We've gotten a poster, and we've gotten a proper trailer. First of all, that poster is a beautiful piece of art.
Poster's great.
I want it on my wall. It's got me on the verge of buying the McFarlane first appearance of Batman. Like it's in my cart. I'm just waiting to push the purchase, right? What did you think of the poster and then the trailer for this?
I thought the poster looks incredible. Just Batman hanging on, the edge of the lights like that. Really setting foot like the whole detective noir roots of the show. I'm with you. The thing could just be sitting on my wall. So I think it was a great like first image of like what to expect before the trailer.
And then the trailer, what did you think of it?
Yeah, the trailer, because I know like when they had done like the casting like video teaser thing trailer, it kind of like it was okay, but then like it didn't really give you that good of a gist of like what to expect in the show, even though it kind of like set the mood a little bit.
Yeah.
But this one, like I thought Hamish Linklater seems like he's gonna be an inspired choice to voice Batman. But if you've seen shows like Midnight Mass, you know that he's certainly capable to have sort of like a monotone monologue voice for Batman. So I'm excited for that. The trailer, I'll be honest with you, it kind of gave me similar vibes to like Batman the animated series. Shows like the Batman, but it's gonna be like its own unique thing. This Batman being like in the 30s, like that 30s, 40s grassroots Batman.
I love the time setting,
where he's like, he's got the gloves on, he's being probably more of a brawler, so like less gadgets, but more like critical thinking Batman, like a nice gritty detective, nitty gritty episodic Batman series that this seems to be. Some classic characters that we're getting to. Catwoman looks great. She's got her classic look.
Yes, I love that.
From the comics, Onomatopoeia. I mean, who would have thought that was going to be?
Yeah.
Maybe we're getting a version of Clayface. We haven't seen the Joker yet.
We saw Penguin in the shadows.
We saw Penguin, so it's like it's going to be Batman for sure. But I'm interested to see the choice to make this back to the Detective Comics roots, Batman, because that's something that we've never really dipped our toes into.
Yeah.
And I think we're long overdue to kind of have like a nice serialized Batman show that appeals to people of all ages. Not that what we haven't had before. wasn't great, but I think that like a worthy true successor to people's favorite Batman animated series, I think all things considered, I think we're going to be in for a treat with this show. So I'm on board with this. What do you think?
Yeah, the time period intrigues me so much. What really sold me on the time period was the scene with Batman and Alfred in the Batcave.
Mm-hmm. Like
And
Batman 66.
yeah, but there's bookshelves like in the Batcave. Like we're so we're so um, early period that there's like he has to if he wants to discover something, he's got to look through the books.
Yeah, it's
Like
pre
there's no,
technology.
he can't Google it.
Mm-hmm.
He can't. He can't tap into the GCPD computer because there is none. You know, he's got a little like beakers, like scientific beaker. Like he's got a lab there that he can do stuff on. Like that kind of like that whole vibe. I'm like, man, you know what I wouldn't do for again and again. Want to streamline DC? I get it, but man, I would love a HBO series of like
Mm-hmm.
early '40s Batman. Like
Yep.
I'd go nuts for that.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that we're getting it in animation, like even a car like the Batmobile, it's a car, but it has like I think in the quick shot that we saw, it had the
Mm-hmm.
bat face on it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Like the
it's
Neil
more
Adams. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more of a normal car, but it has the bat paraphernalia on it. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's still a Batmobile. You know, it's like they found that sort of middle ground with in terms of it's almost like they took what Matt Reeves did in the Batman in live action, mixed it with the comics from the early detective days, and fused the two together. And I'm so eager to see it. And the voice cast, you're right. Hamish sounded a lot better
Mm-hmm.
in this and you know what that is? That's all comes down to context and
Mm-hmm.
hearing the voice in the context of the show, as opposed to him just reading off cast names, right? Um, Again, you mentioned Catwoman. She looks great. I'm amazed that it took this long to get Christina Ricci to play Catwoman.
Mm-hmm.
Either in because years ago she could have done it.
She could done it in live action.
Yeah, she could have been Affleck's Catwoman for all we know.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know
sure.
how old Christina Ricci is, but she's probably in her 40s by now. I guess maybe. I'm not sure, but whatever. But I'm glad that she's Catwoman because I've thought that would be a good idea for a while now. Um,
Mhm.
I'm so interested to see. Oh, by the way, since I'm here with the pen, Christina Ricci on the list, and Jamie Chung, who's playing Harley Quinn. She was also in, um, you know, Sucker Punch,
Mm,
and she was also in Gotham. Remember, she was Vicky
she
Vale's aunt or whatever,
she
and
was.
Jamie Chung on the list as well. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
5 pen clicks. It's more than I
Yeah,
thought we were gonna get.
I mean it's not WrestleMania level, which was 13, but 5 is not bad. We'll see what happens to SummerSlam. But anyway, but yeah, so and I'm interested. I know we saw her name, but we don't know who she's playing. McKenna and Grace, I think it is,
Yeah.
from Ghostbusters. She's in this. I don't know who she's playing, but and of course, at some point, the Joker will be in it. Um, I thought, like seeing Two Face on screen,
Mm,
that look works in motion better than it did in those leaked stills because even though it's like he's not discolored, the
right.
disfigurement looks cool. I like it. Um,
Mm,
and the fact that we're only, August 1st is right around the corner and we're close. I'm getting excited.
yeah.
And so, of course, you and I are going to review this series. Heads up for people on how we're going to do these things just before we wrap up. So we're probably going to go Batman and Superman heavy for the next few months. At least me and Nick are, because what we're planning is, instead of giving you the whole Caped Crusader series in one big gigantic review, we're going to split up the episodes. We're going to do 2 at a time in terms of our review. And then we're probably going to do the same for the Penguin. We're going to do 2 episodes at a time. So it's going to be pretty heavy on that. And then, of course, when there's big Superman stuff that breaks, we'll have one of these team-up episodes where we do both characters at once. But so it's going to get Batman and Superman heavy from Nick and I over the next little while. And couldn't be said, because we have August, we have Batman the Caped Crusader. September, we have the Penguin. October, we have the Joker. And then from there on out, it's Creature Commandos and Superman. So we're going to be a busy duo here, and so stay tuned for all that good stuff. But that brings this show to an end. We enjoyed bringing it to you, as we always do, and we'll be back before you know it. But before then, if you want to talk with Nick or I on social media, you can. Nick, where do they track you down?
Yeah, great stuff as always, Adam. You guys can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Nick Zennick. You guys can most notably hear me on the Vigilante 1939. Just search the name of the show on all your podcasting feeds, and you will find me in there. Thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you. And if you want to track me down, it's at Adam_LeafsFan on Twitter. And then we have the Facebook group, which is listed in the description below. Click that. I will add you, and we can continue the conversation from there if you so desire to. But until next time, remember that, I'll finish it off with Superman. Superman is forever, from the first set leak to the last. So long, everybody.